Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Jessica Strand, the Director of Public Programming at the Library Foundation of Los Angeles. What? Can you hear me now? Okay, I'm going to talk right like this. Is that good? Okay. Before we begin this program this evening, in the spirit of reconciliation, the Los Angeles Public Library recognizes and acknowledges the first peoples of this land. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Indigenous peoples today. It's wonderful to see you all here. Spring has sprung, and we have exciting programs left in our spring season. In the next few weeks, next Thursday, we have David Ambrose and Mayor Bass. Then Saturday afternoon, we're partnering with Penn for the World Voices Festival to bring Reza Aslan and Franklin Leonard. 3 days later on Tuesday, May 16th, the fascinating primatologist Franz de Waal will talk about his findings on gender. So please join us. For those not familiar with the Library Foundation, and if you're a regular, you hear me say this all the time, so please forgive me. For those not familiar with the Library Foundation of Los Angeles, we are a private, nonprofit organization devoted to fundraising, advocacy, and innovative programming in the support of the Los Angeles Public Library. And thank you to all the library members who are in the audience with us this evening. If you are not yet a member, I hope that you will consider joining the LFLA to continue to see more programs like this one this evening and to support critical services and initiatives for children, teens, and adults all over Los Angeles, helping them to improve their life and achieve their dreams. Now, for tonight's eye-opening program, we're very lucky to have both of our wonderful guests, Peter Wohlleben and Sandra Tsing Loh. Peter is here all the way from Germany. He is only touring the West Coast with The Power of Trees, where his New York Times bestselling book, The Hidden Life of Trees, he only toured the East Coast. Wohlleben, in The Amazing Hidden Life of Trees, reveals his extraordinary discoveries about the social networks of trees and how they can communicate with each other. Probably many of you read it. It was incredible. Here. In his new book, The Power of Trees, he looks at their future critical of tree planting, forestry management, and the exploitation of old growth forests. As human-caused climate change devastates the planet, forests play a critical role in keeping it habitable. As The Guardian so aptly put it, Wohleben's idea is this: leave forests alone. Stop fiddling with them, thinking that we can deal with climate change better than nature. If we fiddle, our Romes will burn. Peter Wohlleben is the author of several books about the natural world, including The Hidden Life of Trees, The Inner Life of Animals, The Heartbeat of Trees. His books for children include Can You Hear the Trees Talking? Do You Know Where the Animals Live? And Peter and the Tree Children. A longtime former forester, Wohlleben runs a forest academy in Germany that supports sustainable forest management and teaches adults and children about the many wonders of the forest. Sandra Tsing Loh is a writer-performer who has hosted the syndicated daily radio Science Minute, KPCC, it's on KPCC if you haven't heard it, The Lowdown on Science, co-founded with Caltech since 2004. She's had numerous off-Broadway solo shows, including The Mad Woman and The Volvo. Her comic memoirs include the New York Times new and noteworthy Mad Woman and the Rumba, New York Times 100 Notable Books, Mad Woman, The Volvo, Mother on Fire, A Year in Van Nuys, and Depth Takes a Holiday. The LA Times named her turn-of-the-century novel, As If You Lived Here, You'd Be Home by Now, one of the year's 100 best books of fiction. She has taught science communication at UC Irvine since 2014. She is a Caltech Distinguished Alumni. She got a BS in physics. Her new comedy, Mad Woman on the West, will run May 26th to June 25th at the Odyssey Theater. Please welcome Peter Wohlleben and Sandra Tsing Loh. Thank you.
Guten Abend, Peter Wohlleben. Willkommen. How's my Deutsch? How's my Deutsch? If you're a follower, as I am, of like your exploding million Instagram account, I find your German is very comforting. But willkommen, welcome.
Thank you very much, Sandra. So we can make the talk in German, right?
Yes.
Everyone agrees?
Auf Deutsch, ein bisschen Deutsch. Okay. So I'm so excited to talk to you because I've been thinking about nothing but trees, reading your book, and I hope that you all know that we're going to meet downstairs after and march on IKEA afterwards, you know? Okay. But first to you and your book. So just for those who are maybe new to your work, if you can talk about maybe the moment when Peter Wohlleben is age 6, and you first got this idea, you first became interested in forests, trees, etc. What was that moment?
There was no moment, sorry for that. It always sounds my awakening moment. No, my father worked in the Ministry of Finance, my mother worked in the hospital. I was born in Bonn, the former little capital in Germany. And yeah, I was someone like the green sheep of the family. I don't know why, but I made different things. When I was a child, for example, I breed, is it right? Breed a chicken on a heating pillow?
Yes.
Because I read in a book that if you talk to the egg, then the chicken afterwards regard you as its mother, and it worked. It worked.
Wow.
Yeah, but after 3 days it was really exhausting because there's always that fluffy little ball between your feet, and but afterwards my English teacher adopted it, so and it became very old, sitting on his shoulder and marching through the village. So but I had also a real friend, so I wasn't a nerd.
That was great. The chicken sitting on the shoulder was not exactly what I was picturing, but I'm excited that we heard that. Okay, yes. So, okay, so you're 6, but you're definitely interested in nature, and I know there's a line from there, and then you become interested in what you think is forestry as a young person. Can you describe that?
Yeah, that was by coincidence, because after school I didn't know what to do, as many young people, and then I thought to study biology would be a good idea, and then I read in the newspaper that the German Forest Commission was searching for students. I thought, okay, forester is something like an ant, like Lord of the Rings, you know? Yeah, that sounds good, to be a tree keeper. And yeah, and afterwards it turned out like that a forester is more like a tree butcher. And yeah, you kill trees, of course. It's okay. I look at all those wonderful wooden things here, but that are tree bones, to be honest.
Oh,
and,
that's not a bring down or anything, Peter.
And, but that was how my career on trees started.
Well, and I think you talk about forestry in such an interesting way, and some of it is even the way you analyze language, which is a lot about your work as a scientist and as a communicator. So when you say, you know, we have forests of softwood or hardwood, I mean, you look a lot at the language of what forestry uses and analyze it. Can you give an example of that? How?
Yeah, I don't know the English terms, because we have many German terms. Just to say that mother tree is an old German technical term. But in other things, we say, for example, we plant hardwood or we plant softwood. I don't know if it is in use here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that means that it would be like a farmer says, I have a schnitzel in my stable. That's not possible. I raise a schnitzel as and so we are
or pork chop. For some of you.
Just, it's a German introduced word, right?
Yes.
So we, as a forester, I was trained to think in products, not in ecosystems.
Right, right. And it's like butchering the trees. Okay, so then that moves us into when you're such a incredibly powerful communicator. I think that you say, do you know that trees have a hidden life? When you say that, it's like, who is you, which you're communicating to humans about trees. And I think what is so phenomenal and different about your work is that you really talk about your emotions a lot. So when you will say things like, unapologetically, like, damp enough and no wind. In weather like this, I don't worry about trees. In winter storms, I keep an anxious eye on their crowns. I hope not too many trees. I think of spruce. I'm concerned. I'm worrying. And so that is such a connection to the trees that you're not afraid to make, but also how you talk about trees and their relationships and their feelings and emotions. I wonder what was the journey for you not to just understand this, but to communicate to humans using this kind of language?
Yeah, that was hard training because I make guided tours since 35 years. And first I talked to people like I have learned it at university, and that was boring. And as soon as people through a guiding tour start to talk to each other, not listening anymore, that's the strongest punishment you can get. And then you think, okay, so I have to explain it in a different way. And I changed the way I explain things. For example, I don't teach people, this is an oak tree, that's a beech tree, that's whatsoever, but tell more what's going on in the forest, because it's much more interesting. So the people trained me through the guiding tours, and of course also my family. With my first TV events, I was proud. I say, look, I'm on TV, and when it was broadcasted, we sat. I know the first TV show. We sat in our living room, and I said, look at me here. Now it starts, and my children said, here's the next. And here's the next. Yeah.
Oh.
So, okay. What about being proud? So it's yeah. So it was a hard school. Yeah.
So there's that, and I think that you made specific. What makes your book so readable is that you don't say, and then the nutrients are blah blah blah, and that you will use words like the mother trees suckle their children, which is exactly what's happening. Can you just describe, for instance, what you mean when you say that?
Yeah, the mother trees. You can research this. Pump sugar solutions through the root system to their offspring. So that's how it works. But if you use different terms for trees than for us, then you bring a big distance between us and trees. But why? Because some scientists, for example, say, but you have to talk different when you talk about trees, because it's not okay for trees. So the right thing would be to talk in treeish about trees. And I'm not able to. Sorry, I'm not able to. It's hard enough to talk in English, and to talk in treeish, I haven't figured it out so far. So I talk in human language. And to make it sound bad, some people say that's to anthropomorphize things, and but the other way around would be to talk anthropocentric, and that's exactly the reason why we are destroying our ecosystem, because we think we are in the center. We think that nature invented all those wonderful things just for our species. We think, oh, that's arrogant. We are one of the youngest species on this planet, and we are sitting on the shoulder of all older beings. And nature invented all those wonderful things like emotions, like social interaction for them, and we are profiting from it.
Yeah, and you've said that like trees have 600 words, and people said, what? Trees have words? But can you break down what you mean by that?
Yeah, what we can discover are signals, defending reactions, and that would mean, like, I would like to learn English by stamping on your feet and listening what you are saying to me. So I would think I would just grab some words, and that's exactly where we are now. So we are not able to detect what trees are talking about when they feel good. And even then we have all those different words or expressions or whatsoever. And even then some people say, but that's not communication, because that are chemical signals. And what I'm doing now, that are acoustic sound waves. Yeah, that's language, okay. But for trees which are communicating differently by chemical signals, by electrical signals, and the latest research is even by acoustic signals. Just to say that's an US-American research from flowers. There's a certain flower, for example, that can hear bees approaching, and then it sweetens its nectar within 3 minutes, and is responding by shaking its blossoms. Ah, that sounds esoteric, right?
Wunderbar.
Those scientists, they are crazy.
No, and that's fascinating, and I think that you also talk about the relationships of trees, of that they are, and it was said that you don't plant them alone. They're social, they like each other, they like to communicate to each other, and that they do better when they're in groups, and they help each other, and the way that some plants then grow, their crowns grow away so that they can cooperate and get sunshine. But then they're also, it's such a fascinating journey, but then you have things like beeches versus oaks, right? Who are enemies, right?
I wouldn't say enemy. There are trees that are regularly walnuts, for example. They are very, how do you say, grumpy? No, what is the right word? But a beech would say, what is an oak? I don't care. It's a different species. Why should I be respectful? For example, I tell you a little story about what we think, which are human categories, which should be in order for the complete nature. There's in Germany, foresters try to bring climate resilient trees to a warmer getting climate in Germany, and they think they can construct forests, which is really crazy because we don't know. Around about 90% of all forest species are undetected so far worldwide. Okay.
And because they are, what? Can you break that down?
Okay, I can break it down. In 2 spoonful of forest soil, Norwegian forest scientists found 40,000 different bacteria species, just for example. Not 40,000 bacteria. They found 50 billion bacteria in 2 spoonful of forest soil, and that were 40,000 different bacteria species. So they don't know what they are doing. I know as a forester in Germany, I don't know what is the term in English. We say, ich komme von Hölzchen auf Stöckchen. That means when I'm in the forest, when I'm talking from a forest, I came from the roots to the stem to the tiniest branch, and I'm far away from the original topic. But
Powers of 10. Okay.
But
Can't see the
what I would
forest
say,
for the trees.
one bacteria species can make the difference. We have a big ash dieback worldwide on the northern hemisphere because of imported, perhaps Japanese fungi species, and many foresters say, most of the ashes will die, ash trees, so we make clear cuts, but a certain percentage survive. They don't know why, and that is late research from last summer that one of those 10,000 of bacteria species changed the way the chemicals it produces, and it's defending now the foreign fungi, defeating the foreign fungi, and help the ash tree. So, and that's logical because this bacteria species needs sugar from the ash tree. A big tree pumps as much as 100 kilo pure sugar during a vegetation period in the soil to support its followers. So if those little creatures recognize, the ash tree is feeling bad, then they think, how can we help it? And now we have the next term, think. No, they are not able to think. And I tell you what, I don't know if you know slime molds.
Yes.
Slime molds, it's a singular cell organism. Singular cell organism should be regarded as the most stupid thing on earth, right? Because no brain, not 1.5 kilogram protein on its neck. That's intelligence. No, this is a singular cell organism. And in Germany, at the Technical University of Munich, there's a research going on because the scientists there think that this singular cell organism has the same memory mechanism than we have in our brain. It's able to remember, it's able to communicate, it's able to find the shortest way out of a labyrinth and tell to its companions how it works, and so on. It's a singular cell organism, and it thinks. It has a memory. So we think that every other species which is not exactly working like we is stupid. Crazy, right?
Right, and also we put ourselves, when you say sort of the beech and the oak, they're as different genetically, far more different than we are from a chimpanzee. Like 94% of our DNA is shared. So they're really very different. That's a human-centered universe to go, they don't think like we do. But I think also the trees, and if you haven't gotten the book yet, you should read it, just how trees deal with water is fascinating also, although you were going to say something and I cut you off.
Yeah, that's. I'm sorry that I'm crashing all your questions.
My dreams.
But,
my dreams.
I write more books, I promise.
Good.
No, for example, yeah, that's what I wanted to tell. That forest scientists they brought white fir, which is native to the Black Forest in Germany, from southern regions to the Black Forest, because they think, okay, in southern Europe, the white fir should be adapted to the drier, hotter climate. They brought it to the Black Forest, and it's genetically 100% white fir, so it's identical, and it doesn't grow in the Black Forest. And they made molecular genetic research and found out that the fungi in the forest floor doesn't accept this white fir from southern Europe, although it's genetically exactly identical. And the fungi says, no, it's not identical. It's not the same species. The fungi is always right.
That's why they're so fun. That's why those guys are so fun. So thank you for that. Bitte schön, as we say. But to go back just for a moment, because I think, so for those new to Peter Wohllebens Buchen, if I may say, throwing in my bad German everywhere I can, it is just, you think, okay, the Amazon rainforest, not good to cut it down because they make a lot of oxygen, but I think if you could describe like the atmospheric rivers of how trees and moisture are related, that is one fascinating thing that may be new to people.
Yeah, what we are talking about now is known since more than 200 years. I don't know if you know Alexander from Humboldt. It's a famous German scientist who also...
Yay, Alexander from Humboldt.
Great.
Yeah,
yeah, he was
jawohl.
Yeah, he was a rock star, science rock star of his time, well known to North America, Asia, Europe, wherever. Even the Spanish people in Venezuela made new forests after he told them that the lakes dried out, the rivers dried out because they made so many clear cuts, and so they regarded what he was telling them. And we all forgot this for 200 years, and now modern satellite research we found that forests are producing rain clouds. They are producing actively low depression areas. They are, for example, a big beech tree or oak tree is releasing per second 200,000 bacteria from its leaves, and they go out with the water. They are evaporating in the clouds, and they are creating ice crystals. And that leads to rainfalls. So the forests are producing their own rain, and which is even more important, they are cooling the surrounding air. They're cooling the air down round about. I just know it in Celsius. Round about 10 to 15 degrees Celsius average in summertime. They lower the temperature in June, July, and August. Average 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. That's how much in Fahrenheit? Not very much difference.
In Celsius.
It's 20 degrees Fahrenheit, round about that.
They have their phones out, they can figure it out.
Yeah. And when we think about climate change, so they lower the temperature 10 times more than it rises because of climate change. The forest, because the trees don't like it too hot and too dry, and because they can't move. They know that since 300 million years that when they are growing there, they can't move. So the big difference between us and trees is then they can change the conditions where they grow.
And when you make those color temperature maps of cities, then they can see that where there's a forest, it's like as blue or low as a lake, as just as much as water. Which
exactly. And before that, we thought that rainforests grow where it rains a lot, and now we know where rainforest grows, there is rain because the trees create the rain. And I don't know if you know that the Amazon rainforest, for example, has heavily influence on the North American rain clouds. So if the Brazilians cut more Amazon rainforest down, then you will experience more droughts than you. And as I know, you have here in California heavy droughts in the last years. Not this year, as we've seen in German TV as well, but the years before. Heavy droughts, and what we always hear is just El Niño, El Niña. No, it's about trees.
Right, right. And I think that for those of you, again, new to this work, jumping into this world where you have terms like the well, it has been invented before, the wood wide web, of how these how all of it's communicating mile after mile, this whole ecosystem in our world that we don't know about.
The Wood Wide Web, that's a term created by the magazine Nature in the 1990s, and it's about the tree communication. Trees know, a single tree knows, I'm not a forest. So it's very important for trees to keep their neighbors alive. And so if a tree is, for example, attacked by insects, it warns its surrounding neighbors so they can prepare in advance. Because trees are very slow, around about 1,000 times slower than we, so they have prepared very early for the next attack. And so they get information by wind. But the problem is when you're on the wrong side, you don't get any information. So the wind is very fast. It's very, very fast information. And the very slow information is the electrical signal traveling from through the stem, through the root system, to the next tree that can take hours. And therefore, it's important to be warned in time. And where the root system is not big enough, fungi filaments make the job. It's like the wood wide web, and they get payment for this because fungi. What is fungi? Fungi are not plants. They are not animals. They should be regarded as animals because they don't produce their own food. They have cells make out of chitin like insects. They talk. The latest research from Great Britain, for example, I thought it was a joke when I got the study from Pierre Ibisch, it's a biologist whom I work a lot together. He sent me it in one evening, and I don't know if you make jokes on 1st April?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was the 6th of April, and I thought, okay, it was late April joke because it was in The Guardian in Science, and it's a proved study. From a scientist in Great Britain, and he measured the electrical signal while fungi communicate. And the signal, it's like in our brain signal, and he found out that the signal is identical to our brain signal, even concerning the sentence length. And then I thought, okay, that's a 1st April joke. I said, no, that's latest science from Great Britain. And so what I love to hear, it's modern science, modern biology sounds like a fairy tale, but why? Because we regard nature since the age of enlightenment like a machine. It's all automatic, it's all stupid, it's all just, in modern times we say, according to a genetical code, like a computer program without an individual decision or thinking or whatsoever. And that's not true.
Yeah, it's more like a living neural network. And so I think hence the difference between forest and trees. And you talk about, although you're not totally against planting a tree, but it's like, I'm going to plant a tree. Yay! But that's not the same as making a forest. Like a plantation of spruces is not like an old growth forest. No. So can you talk about that?
It's like battery farming. Sorry for that. Because it starts in the tree nursery, which sounds nice, but there the root tips are cut because otherwise even a little tree as tall as this has a root system with a diameter of more than 1 meter. So it's cut, and in the root tips there are brain-like structures. There are brain-like processes going on. It's sometimes even with the same neural transmitters. For example, the University of Bonn is researching this. We have good close contact to scientists there. So if you cut those root tips, it's like cutting parts of the brains off, and this will never recover 100%. That means, for example, that such trees doesn't root deep. And so they can't go to deeper soil layers with more water in hot summer days, for example. That's in cities like Los Angeles. It's not a very good idea because such trees will die earlier in a drought. And so those trees are enabled for the rest of their lifetime. It's okay to plant trees when you're impatient. Because, to be honest, when you, for example, want to have an apple tree and you would have to grow it from such a seed corn, it takes time. It takes years to have a tree with apples on, and we are impatient with our short lives comparing to a tree, so we want to have a bigger tree immediately, and that's exactly the reason why we plant trees. It's okay to do so, but for trees it's better to grow naturally.
Yeah, and that some of the longest lasting the oldest trees are in really difficult conditions, like Old Chico. And if you haven't seen The Hidden Life of Trees, you should see it to see this almost 10,000-year-old tree in Norway. It's amazing. Okay, so, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not very impressive. It's around about 5 meters tall.
Yeah.
Not much higher than I'm. But it's growing under very rough conditions. And I love the story on the discovery of this tree, because it was one professor in Sweden who said, I want to know how old this tree is. It looks a little like just like scrub. And he researched the organic material from this tree, and then with a C14 method, and then he found out, oh, oops, it's around about 10,000 years old. And before this, spruces were regarded to be as old as maximum 300 years, and at this point in Sweden, they should be there after the Ice Age since 2,000 years. So they said, okay, so we made several mistakes in judging these trees, and then they researched 20 other trees, like little bushes around Old Chico, and those trees are all around about 8,000 years old. So perhaps there are much older trees around, and they just have to be found.
So, okay, so some of the take-homes, and I think what's amazing about this book is that you say, it's not like, oh, climate change, let's go save the trees. You're basically saying that the forests will outlast us anyway. It's not that climate change isn't here and then it's bad, but they're resilient and they may outlive us. Well, they certainly will. But that there are a couple things that we could do. And as I was reading, even as I was printing out all this paper, I was like going, oh no, all that's recycled paper. So one thing, okay, so you say a couple things like eat less meat or don't eat meat because it's so unsustainable. And the second, and I think that you even said things about, toilet paper. So you might be, just like maybe a bidet. It's very European, but think about what you're wiping. Don't think about it. But then also, and it's true that we have books that everyone will get, and then wooden furniture, is maybe not so great. And I think what I did want to ask you about is you don't mention it by name in the book, but if you read in the book, sometimes it may surprise you that a company that seems so sustainable and eco-friendly, et cetera, may be playing a game with language and shape-shifting, and I'm afraid that company would be IKEA. If you can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've visited, for example, the virgin forests in Romania, which are one of the oldest forests in Europe and one of the last virgin forests we have. And the IKEA company, for example, owns there also forests, and not for a good purpose, of course, not for protection, as they do or have done before the Ukrainian war in Western Russia or in Finland or wherever they can grab timber. And they have a very good PR, but a very bad forest management. That means that we are destroying by buying such furniture those climate keepers, which trees are, what companies like IKEA say is that you can store carbon, for example, in wooden products, but to be honest, those furnitures last on average, let's say 5 to 10 years, and then afterwards they are burned in power plants with all the other garbage. And the storage of carbon, that's not the main thing about forest. It's what I said. It's the cooling effect for the atmosphere. It's the creation of rain clouds, which was overlooked or forgotten for decades or centuries. And what we see all over the world is that the reaction for companies is that they create certificates like FSC, for example. I don't know, Forest Stewardship
Which stands
Council.
for Forest Stewardship Forest Stewardship Council. Not so good.
No, it's
FSC.
not. It's not so good because you can't trust them, because if you buy things which with such a certificate, you can't be sure that the forest is treated better.
Yeah. And I think that even the idea of like, we've just cut down this old tree because it was old anyway. The old trees contain, and as a 61-year-old lady, I do think, you know, aged things are valuable. You're all so much younger, I can tell. But that old trees carry so much information within them that it's really horrible, and even one that seems to be ailing or is still nurturing trees around. So that's really
so they're old trees. They, like old people, they keep valuable information. For example, in Germany, the oldest oaks that we have, they are around about 1,000 years old, and they suffered very heavy from the dry summers in 2018 and 2019. And 2020, they recovered. Although we had the third year in a row with a heavy drought, they recovered. And then scientists take a closer look, and they found out that they changed their leaf shape and changed it to a Spanish oak type. And then they thought, okay, what may be the reason? Because that is a totally different species as we regard it as. And they said, okay, perhaps these old oaks remember their Spanish origin, because this population survived the Ice Age in Spain and then came back by birds, of course. And now they are changing and they are recovering within the drought. And that means that trees keep old ancient information, and if they learn, and they can learn rapidly, much more faster than we thought, they give all this information by epigenetic effects to their seedlings, so that the seeds from these oaks are much more climate resilient. So we don't need new tree species from elsewhere, and you know, the fungi says, no, I don't accept it. And it's not just the tree. A tree is like a planet. It works together with bacteria, with fungi, with insects, and perhaps it's sufficient that a singular bacteria species is changing and adapting to climate change, and the tree can stay as is. And just to say that, you're all like little planets. You are not just humans, Homo sapiens. You are thousands of species, which is your personality. For example, I don't know if you know hair follicular mites?
No.
Which are living on you.
No, Peter, no.
Just
no. Too far.
No. I just tell you about one species, not about thousands, just one. Those mites, they live in your follicles, hair follicles, in the face. Yeah, they're very special. They have perfectly adapted to you. They have lost their eyes due to evolution, and they know that is nighttime because your melatonin level rises. And they think, it's night, so they come out while you're sleeping, and then they mate in your face.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
Bitteschön.
Sorry for that.
Bitteschön. Stories by Peter. The Night Gallery by Peter. Okay, even though you thrilled us with hair mites mating in our faces at night.
Perhaps I have to add, you benefit from this, because with those mites, because they eat the grease and the follicles, you don't get so much pimples.
It's like a Grimm's fairy tale. It's really quite hellacious. Oh, bitter. Okay, but yet, before we go to questions in 1 minute, I know, but your book does, even though the stories and on optimism, that you really encourage us to be curious. Like, you can take a mushroom cap, put it on a white piece of paper overnight, and then it will leave an imprint in the morning. You tell us to take photos and look at things around us, and you encourage children to scream in the forest, and that's hilarious, seen in The Hidden Life of Trees. Optimism. Why do you think optimism is important in your book?
Because when you get depressed, you don't help trees. And on the other hand, we are still able to change it. I don't like the tale of the tipping points. There are tipping points, of course, but it's never too late. And it's never too late, but the way back will be longer. If we are on the wrong way, for example, if you make a height, and then you have the strange feeling that this way is not the right direction, then you should stop and turn around. And we all know that sometimes we keep on walking this direction and think, perhaps it's the right way, and then 2 miles later you realize, no, it was really the wrong way. Then the way back will be longer. And that's exactly what I like to prevent. But that if the way back longer is longer, that doesn't mean that you won't come home again. So it's getting worse, of course, and so we should accept the help of trees, because trees as a forest are able to cool the local atmosphere down against the global trend. That means it makes a difference. You don't have to wait. In Germany we say, well, what about all those Chinese and India or American or whatsoever people? This little country like Germany, it doesn't make a difference if we make something good for nature. It makes a difference. Even a single tree in your garden or in your street can cool the local climate around the tree about 1 to 2 degrees. For example, if you sit under an umbrella on a hot summer day, and you can try it when it gets a little bit warmer now, sit under an umbrella and then afterwards under an old tree, and you can feel that it is colder, the air. And that's exactly what the tree does. It evaporates on a single day, a big tree, 500 liters water. And that's like sweating. And it doesn't mean that this water is away. It's just above the tree in the atmosphere. And if there's a lot of trees, they can create clouds and the water comes back. If there's just a single tree, the water will be blown away. But so we need bigger forests, not just little forests, but again, every tree counts.
Oh, and now every tree counts, and every human counts, and every question counts. So if the mic will come to you, raise your hand, and then you can ask the question directly.
Atmosphere that encouraged you to write. The first major, not first, but a book that I got about 4 years ago in New York was The History of Trees, printed by the Architectural Princeton Press, a big book. It took them 10 years to do it. And then the next book I read was your book on The Secret Life of Trees. And now I know you've written more. But what created the atmosphere for people to be encouraged to read all of these books? There must be. I am a person that collects books on colors, and I've done it for 30 years. But there was an atmosphere that encouraged people. And it didn't happen until the 18th century. So what encouraged you?
To write the book or to read?
I think to get accepted, that people became interested in reading these books and hearing about it. And did you see that change?
I think perhaps, yeah, you were right. That was the age of Romans, where people regard nature as valuable because they realized that we have destroyed too much. But we have had this respect 1,000 years ago. Much more. For example, the people regarded nature very different from now. They regarded, for example, animals to be intelligent, to be conscious. There are old papers from a court in southern France, for example, and they punished. They cited bugs to court because they wanted to judge them to leave certain cornfields within 3 days, and they because they thought they were responsible, they understand what the judge will tell them, and so on. So people 1,000 years ago regarded nature very much different from now, and since the Age of Enlightenment, as I thought, we regard nature just as a machine, and many people know by heart that that isn't true. And so if you give them the latest science, you then you realize that you were right. And I think that encourages people to connect better to nature. Perhaps we have to come so far with the destruction of nature to combine better with nature. So it's also a chance. It's not just bad.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Oh, right. Okay, good.
Oh, sorry. Just in terms of evolution, I'm assuming trees were here before we were. Am I
I
right?
think he says we are assuming the trees were here before we were. Yes.
Yeah. And then wouldn't they have a head start in terms of the intelligence factor in terms of nature?
Wouldn't they have a head start in terms of being intelligent about nature because they were here ahead of us? Okay, so if trees were here first,
Yeah.
they would have a head start in being intelligent. Oh, a head start. They would be ahead of us in terms of understanding nature.
You're completely right. We can't research this because, again, we don't speak Trish. And that's the main problem. When we talk, for example, our daughter, when she was a little girl, she said, humans are crazy because we always try to train animals to speak our language, like parrots or chimpanzees or so. And she said it would be much more intelligent if we would learn to speak animal language. And that's exactly in the same direction as you say. So we don't know how intelligent trees are, but they are intelligent enough they are egoistic. They take their space. They bring big plant-eating mammals to extinction. They can do this. They've done that in Europe, for example, with forest elephants, with rhinos, and so on. But while be there, they make their environment always better. That's much more intelligent than what we are doing. And just to say that, we don't have a clear definition for intelligence. What is intelligence? What is language? What is thinking? What is consciousness? And so on. The only thing we always know is all other species don't have it.
Yes, a question back there, Tiffany. Yeah.
Oh, hi. When you said something about how the mother tree passes information on, what I was wondering is the seeds, like let's say you take the seeds away and you plant, I don't know, seeds from up in the mountains here down into like Pasadena area. Does it take the same information with it just as a seed, or does it need to be with its mother?
We don't know so far. We know that trees can detect through their roots which neighboring tree is the same species, which neighboring tree is the same family, so they are able to judge this. And because we know by radioactive marked sugar molecules, for example, to which trees they share food. So we know all this, but if you bring seeds to, for example, oak acorns here into the city and let them grow on their own, there won't be. I think there won't be a connection to the surrounding trees. So they have to grow on their own. So that's not perfect because the mother tree is caring for its offspring. We know that seedlings surrounding its mother trees that they behave different. Within a drought, for example, as if you would bring them to different places far away from the mother trees. So there is an influence, but we don't know how far it reaches.
I think we have time for one more quick question. Is that right? Okay. Okay, there we go.
Hi.
Oh, and wait, somebody.
Oh.
You were pointing out someone earlier.
Yeah, because by mistake we missed this guy.
Okay, we missed somebody by mistake. Can you point out who it was?
It was you, yeah?
Yes. All right. Well, let's do one and then we'll do.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Got it.
Hi, I thank you for being here. I've been reading a lot about AI, artificial intelligence, and there's information saying that when people go through MRI readers, that AI elements can read their thoughts and translate what someone's thinking without them speaking out loud. And I'm wondering, I'm hearing my takeaway tonight is that humans have issues trying to understand the intelligence of these other forms, but perhaps artificial intelligence will learn more about these things prior to us figuring it out. Do you have any, have you thought about that?
Can I say something? And this is the worst thing, but I was saying, when you said AI, I was just thinking about AI before I tossed to you. And one thing that we were learning from trees, that sometimes developing quickly is a really bad idea. So trees that age and mature very slowly is very good. And AI, not that example in particular, but with this chatbot, there's some concern that humans are developing things like AI, the general field, so quickly we're going to screw it up.
Yeah, it may be dangerous, of course. Perhaps it may be helpful. We will know afterwards. But
The trees will still be here, though.
Yeah.
We won't.
But the problem with AI is that it is constructed for our information system, and for example, for trees, it would be in need to detect chemical language, which is possible with AI with a chemical detector, of course. It would be on my wish list that I would have a translator. Not to talk to trees, but to understand trees. And perhaps this is one day possible. I think that should be technical seen possible, but it's not of value for people with money. That's the problem. But I would be very interested in this research.
What a great question. We have one more. This is a fantastic discussion. If only we had very intelligent.
Yeah.
Okay, last question.
Similarly, I was going to ask, how can we be in better relationship with trees, and how have you listened to trees? Like, so what are some of the ways we can listen to?
Yeah. I think the first thing is that we don't regard trees as being a little bit more like a stone, but a very slow, intelligent individual being. And then it's very interesting. For example, I recommend that to children, but also to adults, to befriend you with a tree, with your next tree, and to watch it, observe it over the years, how it's reacting, behaving, making mistakes. It's funny to see trees making mistakes and correcting it. But it takes, let's say, 1 or 2 years to say, oh, whoops, it made a mistake, and it's correcting it immediately within the next year. So it takes time. So what helps is to make photos with your cell phone, and if you realize that it's reacting like an elephant. And trees have long memories. For example, if they have suffered from heavy thinning in the forest by forest industry, and the remaining older trees, they remember this for at minimum 60 years. Even if you leave this forest afterwards untouched, there's latest research from Romania that trees remember this and suffering from it the next at minimum 6 years. That's the longest research done so far. So if you observe trees, if you watch trees, you have got a deeper understanding for trees. And again, it doesn't matter that you do as much as you can, but for having more trees, which is a good idea, of course, but the understanding is much more important.
Thank you so much. And Peter will be signing books out there. Be sure to get them. But in the meantime, we would like to say, Peter Wohlleben, Dankeschön. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for this wonderful discussion.
And I have to say, thank you, Sandra. I know she read tons of material, because when we talked in the green room about very special things, I know. So I run out of topics because you were so well prepared. You made it so easy for me with my rough English to have a very lovely conversation. Thank you so much.
You were both great, and it was a wonderful conversation. I hope you all look at trees very differently from now on. Peter will be signing in the lobby, and there are I'm just going to mention two terrific things going on this weekend that the Los Angeles Public Library is putting on May 6th, this Saturday. There will be its 150th anniversary end of the celebration with Chris Estrada and Jesus Trejo. And you can get tickets on the Eventbrite for that. And then the big read with Charles Yu and Jean Long Lu Yang, Yang will be on May 7th, and that will be at 2 o'clock here in this auditorium. Both will be in this auditorium at the library. So please check out both the Loud and the Los Angeles Public Library events. And thank you all for being here, and thank you both so much.